Ladies and gentlemen, Better Call Saul is fantastic, and there is virtually no flaws. Except one. It feels like it's been forever since I've made a Better Call Saul video, which it's my favorite show of all time. I feel like it's only right to get back into the swing of it because I've been lightly rewatching the show and I miss it. I already made a video all about my missing it. If you want to see that, the video is going to be linked up here. But I wanted to talk about one important thing. Better Call Saul is a show that I genuinely find to be pretty much perfect. And in one of my last videos, I said, I think it is the perfect show. So yeah, okay, let's get real for a second. There is no such thing as perfect. There isn't one thing that is. Practice makes progress. Yeah, blah, blah, blah. It doesn't matter, okay? Better Call Saul is fantastic, and there is virtually no flaws. Except one. And that flaw is a very small one, and one that I wasn't sure whether I was going to make a video on or not, but god damn it, we're here doing it anyway. This video is all about the one flaw in Better Call Saul.
Just say it.
A lot of people have problems with a lot of things in Better Call Saul. One, they think the pacing is a little bit slow. They feel like the cartel storyline isn't that great. It's not as good as Breaking Bad, apparently, even though it's the superior show. Whatever. There's a lot of people who have a lot of mixed emotions about the show. I don't care about any of those. They're not true. Better Call Saul is a masterpiece. Except, towards the end of the show, there was one thing that happened that really stood out. And unfortunately, it's not something that was done by the writers. It's not something that was done by the actors, kind of. It's not something that was done by the cinematography. It was a recast. It was the recast of Jeff the Cab Driver, guys. That's the one flaw in Better Call Saul. That's it. And I wanted to talk about that because I do think it's relevant. And I wanted to talk about how it's not really a flaw because it was executed so well, but simultaneously, it's one of those things that really is immersion breaking at the same time. So I'm very mixed about it. And I'd have to say it is the only thing that's a downside in the show. That's it. That's it. Jeff the Cab Driver should not have been recasted, but he had to. I get it. The actor wasn't able to film. So the actor who originally played Jeff the Cab Driver was in season 5 in the first episode with the Gene flashbacks, and it was a different actor. The guy's name was Don Harvey, and Don Harvey just had a certain thing about him on screen that worked. I don't know what it was. I mean, we didn't know this character, Jeff, but in the end of the day, he just felt like Jeff the Cab Driver, and he looked distinguishably Jeff. I don't know how one looks distinguishably like someone we've never seen before, but regardless, there was just a certain feel to this character. He had this just gritty, just interesting demeanor that we never got to see outside of season 5, episode 1. And it's something that I wish we got to see more of in the show. But unfortunately, Don Harvey wasn't available. So when his role became much bigger in season 6, the back half of season 6 mainly, there was a lot that was on the table here. So obviously, I'm sure when it came down to scheduling and the production crew trying to coordinate with Don Harvey, it was probably extremely disappointing to find out that he couldn't be on set to film. And I'm sure that was a really tough thing for not only Vince Gilligan and Peter Gould, who are like the headmasters of the show, even though that's not the proper title, but I'm sure it was stressful for them as much as it was stressful for all of the cast and crew trying to figure out what they were going to do. There must have been some crazy auditions that went on behind the scenes, and at some point, I guarantee you, Vince Gilligan and the team had a conversation where it was like, it just doesn't matter. The story's the story, doesn't matter who portrays it. Because Pat Healey was the individual that they picked to replace Don Harvey in the show. And questionable, they don't look anything alike, like at all. And also, they don't sound or have the same demeanor alike at all, like at all. It's almost like the Jeff the Cab Driver was a totally different character than what we had originally seen on screen. Now, whether you think that's a good thing or a bad thing is up for interpretation. I think I've laid out that foundation in this video already to begin with. If you want to comment your thoughts about that in the comments, feel free to go ahead and do so. It's right under the like button. But overall, the point I'm making is not whether it was good or bad, because I loved the overarching story, no matter who played it. But it's more about the immersion breaking factor as to why I think it's, I guess, a flaw. But there's really nothing that you could do about that besides get Don Healey or Don Harvey or whatever. I mixed up the two of their names. Don Harvey to come back and reprise the role. That would have been the only thing they could have done. Or the other thing, which I'm surprised they actually didn't do, was do a slight reshoot of the season 5 scene. You know how all of these shows are on platforms where we could binge like crazy, like Netflix and even AMC Plus and yada yada? They could have easily just reshot the season 5 episode 1 scenes, as well as some, well, you didn't even really need to do the season 4 scenes, but mainly the season 5. You could have reshot those and just put them into Netflix, put them into AMC Plus and blah, blah, blah. And I'm sure that requires some more money and some more stuff like that. But that one little thing just immediately made it a little bit more immersion breaking, because if I went back to rewatch Better Call Saul like I am right now, and I see Don Harvey in one scene playing Jeff the cab driver, and I see Pat Healey playing another scene as Jeff the cab driver, I'm going to be very confused, because it is immersion breaking, because it's like, isn't that Jeff the cab? Who's this guy? Like, and I know that happened because I watched the show with my dad, and my dad had no clue who this new guy was. And I was like, well, do you remember the guy from season 5? And he's like, oh, that guy? Yeah, like it was one of those things. And all they really had to do was fix it was go back and do a very quick reshoot. They could have done that for very minimal money. They already have the script. They already have the blocking. They already know exactly everything. You just go back and replace a guy. And again, I'm not on cast and crew, so I don't know how feasible that is, but I can't imagine it's that much, especially when there were already some mall shots within the show to begin with. So it's not like they were really wasting anything on production. You know what I mean? That's just my main thought with it. I feel like they could have done a bit better of a job with it. But all of the negatives aside, it also raises a different discussion in that this show is so good that it doesn't matter who played Jeff the cab driver. And that's where I get into, even though they were totally different, I don't throw shade at one. I don't think one was portrayed badly. They were just portrayed a little differently from one another, but it doesn't matter because the story was so damn good. It could have been anyone playing the role. For all I care, Elon Musk could have played Jeff the cab driver with his weird voice and all of that, and it still would have worked. At its core, that goes to show how significant and strong these writers are. And it's something that I feel like every person who is trying to become a writer for a TV show should aim to achieve. Vince Gilligan and Peter Gould cracked the code, and they made something truly magical. And there's not much I could say out there that is like that. But if you have a recast so significant as the two of them, where they literally do not look anything alike or act really anything alike, but it doesn't matter because it's so good, that just says miles about the production. It really does. And that's why in the end of the day, even though it's a flaw, and I would consider it for sure one, it's still not in the same vein because it was fine. Like it worked. I can't imagine The Walking Dead doing that. I definitely can't imagine Fear the Walking Dead doing that. I can't even really imagine Game of Thrones doing that. That just comes down to the root of the entire subject of this video overall. Yeah, it's a flaw, but it worked. So who cares that it's a flaw? And that's what I wanted to talk about in this video. It's not a long one, but overall, I think the show was just so well, but it could have been actually perfect if Don Harvey had just stayed in it. Not that Pat Healey did a bad job. I'm not saying that at all because I don't think so. I'm only saying that from a continuity standpoint. But unfortunately, the actor wasn't available. So you have to make do with what you have. And I think they did a masterful job in the show doing that. And with that out of the way, let me know your thoughts on the recasting of Jeff the cab driver down in the comments. And again, until the next one, I will talk to you later. Peace out.